This is a lecture from Open Tuition. For the free lecture notes that go with this podcast, please visit opentuition.com.
Alright, now chapter 18 is actually a very quick one indeed. It's more terminology than anything. You know full well, I'm sure, that the way some people fix their prices, selling prices, they might say, oh, I'll always fix the selling price by taking the cost and adding on a percentage. Would you agree? It's in later exams where we discuss whether that's sensible or not sensible and all sorts of things. But it is quite common. I might say, you know, I have these books. I buy it from the supplier and pay $10. Oh, I add on 20% profit and I sell it for $12. All right? Well, we call that a markup. If you look, sorry, we're on page 119. A markup is what we call it when the profit is expressed as a percent of the cost. So look at the two little examples. Yelena has a cost of goods sold of 20,000. She sells things, she applies a markup of 20%. What's their sales? Well, it couldn't be easier. It simply means she adds on a profit of 20% of cost. And therefore, her sales would be 24,000. Now come on, do speak to me. You'll be annoyed with me if I keep repeating and it's obvious. But honestly, if you could see your faces, I have absolutely no idea whether that's obvious or whether you think I'm talking Chinese. All right? Are we clear? Yeah. Markup. Add on a percent of cost. I mean, really, you hardly need a calculator. Well, the only little, what you might call, trick there can be, but I don't think it's hard, is having you work backwards, effectively. Look at B. B, Karen, this time I've told you what her sales are. Her sales are 50,000. She's got a markup of 25%, so she's adding 25% to the cost. And we want to know, what is the cost? So, whether you find it easy or hard, you all see what the problem is. We're going backwards. I know what the sales are. We're having to go back. Now, I think I mentioned before for a different reason. This is one of these things where, for some people, it's almost immediately obvious and they can do it straight off. For other people, it's less obvious. And it's always amusing. I think I mentioned before that this is one area where the people who find it obvious can't understand the people who don't. And the people who don't find it obvious can't understand why some people do, you know. So it's up to you, but for all of you's benefit. How you get the answer, I don't care. But one way, if it keeps you happy, is a little bit of algebra. The point being, if the cost were X, that's what we're trying to find out. The markup is 25%, so the profit you'll add on will be 25%, or, you're all happy, I hope, 0.25 of X. And therefore, the sales, X plus 0.25, that'd be 1.25x. Everybody? Well, of course, we know what the sales are. They're 50,000. And so now, out for everybody, it's easy algebra. X, the cost, 50,000 divided by 1.25 is it 40,000, please? Yeah. 40,000. Now, can I say again, and fairly obviously, because you're only ticking boxes, nobody cares how you do it. If you do find it sort of obvious, or you want to do it different ways, fine, I'm not going to argue. Do it any way you like. But again, for everybody's benefit, is everybody certain how we've got to the 40,000? The final answer. Okay? All right, so I hope no problem. Read carefully, obviously. However, there is another way of expressing it, terminology. Those two are referred to a markup of 20%, 25%, whatever. And always, that's the percent, the profit as a percent of the cost. But the alternative is to tell you what we call the gross margin, or the gross profit percent, where this percent is expressing the profit as a percent of the selling price. Look at the examples. A. Peter has sales of 120,000. His gross profit percentage is 20%. And we want to know the cost. Well, a gross profit percent, it's the profit as a percent of selling price. So if the sales are 120, the profit, 20% of sales, is 24. And surely, if you're making a profit of 24 and selling for 120, the cost must be 96. Now, I can't believe anybody's got an arithmetic problem there. But are we clear what I mean about the terminology? 20% markup, profited by 20% of cost. Gross profit percent of 20. The profit's 20% of the sales. Clear? However, again, although it shouldn't be a problem, obviously be careful. For everybody, a tiny bit less obvious, look at B. Effectively a work backwards. Here, the cost of goods is 45,000. The gross profit percent is 25. I think you know what I mean by work backwards. We want to know what the sales are. Again, if it's obvious, be patient. If it's not, use some little X's. But what must the sales be? Anybody got a figure? Oh, very good. Anybody like to give me a figure?
60.
Yeah, I think she's right. Again, same as before. How you get it's up to you. Don't waste time in the exam. But here we want the sales. If the sales were X, how much will the profit be? The profit's 25% of X, 0.25X. And surely, therefore, the cost, if you're selling for X and the profit's a quarter of X, the cost must be 0.75X. I mean, get the right way round, but cost plus profit is always selling price. It's sales we don't know. Profit's 0.25 of it, cost point therefore 0.75. We know what the cost is, it's 45,000. And then, of course, it becomes easy. It's 60. Now, I'm not going to embarrass anybody. There'll always be one or two, just like that. Which once you've got it is easy, it doesn't take long. But, if you need to, shout. If you need to, practice. But clearly remember the words. Markup, a percent of cost. Gross profit, a percent of selling price. Because you'd all agree, even if you find the arithmetic easy, if you forget which is which, obviously you get silly answers. True? However, I'm going to say one last thing. Before I do, now come on, do help me here, please. Is everybody clear about B? Yep. Alright, the only thing is, of course, although there will be one or two of those, just checking you're happy what the word means. Markup, margin. She will make it slightly more fun. Could you all take this down somewhere? Write on the page somewhere or whatever. It's a very short question. Can you take it down? Suppose I tell you, this year we've made sales of 100,000. We've made purchases of 90,000. Our opening inventory was 10,000. I want to know, what is the closing inventory? You can't tell me, because you need one more bit of information. We sell goods at a markup of 25%. Now we'll do this together. Not because it's hard, but let me show you the best approach. But there'll always be several like this, where, I think you understand me, there's a missing figure, What's closing inventory? Now, as always, hello. Sorry, I could leave you to have a go, but, I want to be efficient. There are lots for you to try. As always, how you get the answer, I don't care. Neither does the examiner. But, of course, in your own interests, A, you want to be quick, and B, obviously, you want to avoid silly mistakes. What I always do is this. It's up to you, by all means do it differently. What I always do, I set up a little trading account. Sorry? Oh, I thought you said something. What I mean is, think back to last time, What do we normally do in our income statement? You show sales less cost of sales. And the cost of sales is your opening inventory plus any purchases. Yep. Less any closing inventory. Do you remember? The cost of sales is what you had at the beginning, plus what you bought, less what you've got at the end. And that gives you your profit. At the minute I see one of these, I always write that down. It only takes 2 seconds. And then let's fill in what we know. I know what my sales were. 100,000. I know what my opening inventory was. It was 10. I know what my purchases were. They were 90. But of course, what I don't know is my closing inventory. Therefore, I don't know the cost of sales. Therefore, I don't know the profit. True? However, of course, I do know this percentage. Now again, read carefully, it could be either. I could have given you the gross margin, percent of sales. What did I give you? I gave you the markup. I said the markup is 25%. And what does that mean? It means I always add 25% to the cost. All right? Fine. We know what we sold. Can you all write down, please? What is the cost of sales if my markup is 25%? Oh, that's right. Again, whether you choose to use X's or other ways, if the cost is X, with a markup 25%, the profit would be 0.25X. The sales, therefore, would be 1.25X. We know the sales are 100. The cost, therefore, must be 80. Do we agree? And so the cost of sales, 80,000. I don't really need it, but of course the profit is 20. It does work. It's 25% of cost. But now, of course, it's easy. If the cost of sales is 80, what must the closing inventory be? What must the closing inventory be, please? If the cost of sales is 80 on those figures there. Thank you. Yeah, the missing figure. You had 10, another 90, we had 100,000. We only sold 80. The closing inventory must be 20,000. Now, for about the 23rd time, I don't care how you get the figure, you know, any way you like. But you will definitely get several of those. They're very popular indeed. You know, sometimes you see, oh, all our inventory was destroyed in a fire. How much was it? Well, effectively, you know, it's find the missing figure. It's 20,000. All right? Or you get something like, listen to this carefully. You get something like, exactly the same question. Is anybody listening? We've had a theft. Somebody's stolen inventory. And we've only got 5,000 left. How much was stolen? Tell me, if I gave you exactly the same question and said, some of our inventory's been stolen, or some of our inventory's just been destroyed in a fire, and there's only 5,000 left. How much was stolen or destroyed? 15. You know, do exactly the same. We've worked out what the inventory should be. It should be 20. If I tell you it's only 5 because there's been a fire or something, how much is missing? The answer's 15. Okay? But you'll definitely get some. And it could be anything, you see. I could have given you closing inventory and not told you the purchases figure and said, what are purchases? It could be anything. And, of course, here I said it was a markup of 25. I could instead have given you the same question, but given you the gross profit percentage. I've already said you must remember which is which. But otherwise, always the same approach. Everybody? So it's not that they're hard. But you can imagine, you have to be careful. It's up to you, but I personally, you know, I've been doing these long enough. I really do find the quickest and the safest is to automatically write that up. Fill in what I know. Missing figure. Yeah? You know, if you're doing it in your head, the danger is you add and subtract wrong ways, you do stupid things, you know. And you've already seen, of the 4 answers, the 3 wrong ones are always answers that you get by doing something stupid, you know. It's almost always the case. You make a stupid mistake and the answer's there. It never occurs to you it's wrong. All right.